Almost two-thirds of Americans say the U.S. is headed in the wrong direction. And a big reason for that cynicism is the economy, which at first glance is strange because corporate America says the economy is doing well. Axios reports on that sentiment from statements and earnings calls with some of the nation's top brands last week. The CEO of PNC Bank says consumer spending has been remarkably resilient. Ultimately, this is driving a sound economy. And the chief financial officer of GM told investors, we expect next year to be even better than 2025. But if you out there are sitting at home and scratching your head over that, you're not alone at all. A new estimate from Moody's says it is only the top 10% of households driving that spending. In fact, that same top 10% now account for nearly half of all spending. The last time, by the way, that we saw a chasm like that was the 1980s. Joining us now, co-founder and director of economic policy for Veda Partners, Henrietta Trace. I've been paying attention. I believe we call this the K-shaped economy.
That's it. That's the ticket. Some of us are doing really well, and some of us are experiencing the highest prices, continued inflation. Every single time we shop, it gets more and more expensive. And from coffee in the morning to buying sneakers for your kids later on in the day, it's everywhere.
How does there's a lot of angles to this. If you are the Fed and you're trying to decide on interest rates, how much more complicated does it get if the top 10% is spending a ton and the economy is still going okay, but the rest of the country is not spending, and perhaps if they lose their job, not getting a job? How do you deal with trying to keep a hold of inflation?
Right. And that's really the struggle for the Fed, is that they see inflation. They know that it's coming. And there's more to come even in the first quarter of 2026. And even as soon as next week, if the president goes ahead with his 100% new tariffs on China and the new tariffs on Canada and new tariffs on Mexico, which are all scheduled to roll out in the next 10 days. If those happen, what's worse? The inflation facing all of these families, all of, the 50% of America that's not in the wealthiest brackets, the 90% of America that's not in the top 10%, when they're also losing their jobs. Because you're seeing a material focus from the Federal Reserve on jobs, from the manufacturing sector, most importantly, in car manufacturing plants, appliances. Those are the people that are hemorrhaging jobs. And they're losing the jobs in such a fashion that it's even more important to the Federal Reserve than the inflation that we're seeing. So it's kind of stark. If you think inflation is bad, the jobs picture is even worse. That's what the Fed is grappling with right now, if they can get their hands on the data.
There is a poll out there. We mentioned it at the top. This is on the economy. Most Americans think that it's headed in the wrong direction. 29% of Republicans, 91% of Democrats. They're certainly split on partisan lines. How do you explain that? How do you explain the partisanship in experiencing the economy?
The partisanship is this trust in Trump methodology and ideology that the Republican Party has, whereas both independent voters and Democrats, basically anybody that's not in the hardcore MAGA camp, is saying, hey, look, every single time I go to the store, it's more expensive. And so if you used to be shopping at Target, now you're shopping at Walmart. If you used to be shopping at Walmart, now you're shopping at Dollar General. And it impacts every single income bracket. But the lowest demographic, the middle class, anybody under $250,000 a year, it impacts you the most. And you're feeling the brunt of this because tariffs are aggressive and voters know that.
Donald Trump apparently says that the leaders of GM and Ford called him today to thank him for putting tariffs on trucks, because he says they told him it's helping their companies. All right, Henrietta Trace, thank you very much.